There are things we all do, thoughts we all have, behaviors we accept as just part of being human. But psychologists, trained to understand the human mind, know that sometimes what seems normal might be a red flag hiding in plain sight. You might think your little habits are harmless, that your emotional reactions are just your personality. But professionals know, behind the curtain of everyday behavior, there's often trauma, anxiety, or deep psychological conditioning. Today we're diving into raw, eye-opening stories and insights pulled from Reddit, where real therapists and psychologists respond to the question, what do people think is normal, but actually isn't? From humor masking depression to over-empathy rooted in childhood neglect, this isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Let's explore the invisible red flags that live in plain sight. Isolation isn't always introversion. A lot of people claim they just prefer to be alone. They say, I'm not antisocial, I just enjoy my own company. And sure, alone time is healthy. But where's the line between solitude and silent suffering? I've had patients who insisted they didn't want social interaction, shares one therapist. But the truth was they felt inadequate. They were convinced they had nothing to offer, that others would reject them if they got too close. Some people isolate to protect themselves. They call it being introverted, but it's fear disguised as preference. And the longer they isolate, the harder it becomes to re-engage. It starts small, declining invitations, ignoring messages. Before long, days blend into weeks, and they start convincing themselves they prefer it that way. Sometimes I just pretend I'm busy so I don't have to explain that I feel like a ghost. In my own skin, one Reddit user confesses, isolation becomes a loop. You feel disconnected, so you avoid people, and the more you avoid, the lonelier and more disconnected you feel. This isn't about being introverted. It's about fear, shame, and emotional withdrawal that's quietly eating people alive. Talking to yourself, loudly and often while talk to ourselves, a quick where did I put my keys? Or don't forget to grab groceries. But what if those conversations aren't quick or forgettable? A patient once told me they speak to themselves as if they're two different people. One psychologist writes, they even assign different names and genders to their internal voices. And sometimes they black out during these conversations. That's not quirky, that's disassociation. And it's more common than most think, when internal dialogue becomes an alternate reality. When you argue with a version of yourself or hear internal criticism as a separate voice, that can signal trauma, depersonalization, or even early psychosis. The scariest part, many people assume it's just their imagination, until they start losing time being too empathetic. The danger of feeling everything. We celebrate empathy. We admire people who feel deeply. But can you feel too much? One of my clients couldn't sleep for days after reading about a stranger's death online. A trauma therapist writes, they felt guilt for not doing something, for not being there. It consumed them. This isn't compassion, it's emotional absorption. And it's often rooted in early childhood trauma, where a person learns that their safety depends on constantly managing everyone else's emotions. I felt like I had to feel what others felt if they were in pain, and I didn't absorb it too. I was being selfish. That's not empathy. That's survival mode. True empathy has boundaries. Emotional fusion does not. Constant noise, escaping your own mind, music, podcasts, TV, background YouTube videos, white noise apps. For some people, it's just ambience. For others, it's a lifeline. If I don't have some kind of sound playing, my mind turns on me, a Reddit user confesses. I start replaying every mistake I've ever made, every failure, every rejection. Psychologists call this avoidant auditory stimulation. It's when you can't bear your own thoughts in silence, so you flood yourself with distractions. It's coping, but long-term, it prevents healing. Silence reveals what noise hides, and sometimes, the silence is the only thing that tells the truth. Humor as a suicide note. I wish I was dead. Same, lol. Just end me already. Dark humor is everywhere, but for some, it's not a joke. My patient joked about killing himself for months. One psychologist wrote, no one took it seriously until he ended up in the ER. Humor can be a shield, but sometimes it's a thin veil barely covering a scream for help. The danger isn't in the joke. It's in how frequently it's repeated, how casually it's dropped, and how no one ever stops to ask, "Are you okay?" Really, the illusion of control, color-coded planners, perfectly arranged desks, never letting someone else drive. People praise it as being organized, but beneath it, control is often a trauma response, says a clinical psychologist. When someone has lived through chaos, abuse, neglect, unpredictable environments, control becomes their safety net. A messy house might be tolerable, a messy childhood, not so much. The person obsessed with order might not be uptight, they might be terrified. Emotional exhaustion masquerading as laziness. I'm not lazy, I'm just tired. How many times have you said that? Burnout, depression, and trauma-based fatigue don't always look like breakdowns. Sometimes they look like missed texts, canceled plans, and lying on the couch staring at nothing for hours. And when people around you say just get up or stop being dramatic, you believe them. But your nervous system isn't just tired. It's protecting you, and pushing through without healing only makes the exhaustion worse. Minimizing abuse as normal. Yeah, my parents hit me, but I deserved it. They were strict, not abusive. Generational trauma convinces us that harm is love. Psychologists hear this constantly. Patients downplaying emotional, verbal, or physical abuse as tough parenting. But if the scars, physical or emotional, still echo in your adult behavior, it wasn't just discipline, it was harm. Needing instant validation, the dopamine hit of a like, a comment, a response. It's addictive, but for some, it's not about ego, it's about survival. If someone doesn't text me back in 10 minutes, I spiral, one Reddit user writes. My brain tells me they hate me, that I ruined everything. Psychologists link this to attachment wounds. Early emotional inconsistency teaches people that love must be earned, begged for, and chased. Validation becomes oxygen, and without it, panic sets in. The people-pleasing trap. I just want to keep the peace. I can't say no. I feel guilty. People-pleasing isn't kindness, it's self-erasure. Psychologists often trace this to childhoods where love was conditional. If you were only valued when you were helpful, silent, or agreeable, you learned to sacrifice your needs to survive. But constantly prioritizing others isn't noble. It's how you disappear. Ending reflection. What people think is normal often isn't. These behaviors, the isolation, the noise, the control, the endless humor, the I'm fine mask, they're not personality quirks, they're survival mechanisms. Trauma echoes, invisible scars, but recognizing them is the first step toward healing. You don't have to stay in survival mode forever. You can unlearn the patterns. You can redefine what normal means, and you can do it without shame, because behind every masked behavior is a human trying to feel safe.